Tonight to talk about this and more, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, also serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee. He's the author of the new book, #1 bestseller, 7 Things You Can't Say About China. Senator, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Brett.
Your reaction, knowing what you know, to this development, also the restarting of weapons and intelligence sharing with Ukraine.
Well, I think it's a welcome development out of Saudi Arabia today that Ukraine has agreed to what President Trump has wanted for some time now, a brief pause in the fighting that's on the front lines in eastern Ukraine, deep airstrikes between Ukraine and Russia, and then also strikes on the Black Sea, to see if a short pause can turn into a longer end to the fighting. I think that's what the president has wanted all along. He wants Ukraine to get to some framework that will guarantee their sovereign independence, which is a term that he and Vice President Vance continue to use. He wants to have an economic stake in Ukraine's future as well. That's why he's focused on this critical minerals deal. And then I think he wants to present that to Moscow and see if they're willing to stop the fighting.
He was asked about talking to Vladimir Putin today. Take a listen.
Mr. President, will you talk to Vladimir Putin about this ceasefire deal? Do you think you need to have a conversation with him to get the Russians to agree?
I'll talk to Vladimir Putin, yeah.
When will
I want to
talk?
look, that's the other, it takes two to tango, as they say, right? So hopefully he'll also agree, and I really think that would be 75% of the way. The rest is getting it documented and, you know, negotiating land positions, etc.
You know, as you look at a map of Ukraine, and we haven't seen it change really that much with Russian occupied territory and where Ukraine has been battling back and forth in the blue, Russia in the red. Do you believe that Ukraine is going to give up territory and that Russia is going to agree to this deal without taking big chunks of territory that they currently sit on?
Well, I think what we can say is it's unlikely that either Ukraine or Russia is going to make significant advances on the battlefield at this point. There was a time when Ukraine might have, in fact did, in the fall of 2022, but at this point, gains have been extremely incremental, and that's what President Trump sees. He sees the high number of casualties for very little movement either way. I wouldn't want to prejudge what concessions either side might make, but as President Trump said, it's going to take two to tango, and as Secretary Rubio said in Saudi Arabia today, the ball is now going to be in Russia's court, and we have to see if Vladimir Putin is willing to agree to some kind of ceasefire and also to agree to some kind of framework. I commend President Trump and President Zelensky here for trying to go the extra mile to bring an end to this fighting, at least temporarily, so you can explore the possibility of a durable, lasting ceasefire that preserves Ukraine's sovereign independence.
President Trump was standing next to Elon Musk in that soundbite there. It's an emotional thing, support for Ukraine and where you stand on the war and how long it's gone. But this back and forth with Senator Kelly the other day and Elon Musk, after Kelly had visited Ukraine on the ground saying, you know, he's supporting the Ukrainian people, Elon Musk tweeted back, or on X, "You're a traitor." And obviously Senator Kelly, your colleague, responded on camera last night.
The only oath I can think of that maybe Elon has sworn is an oath to his own checking account, to his pocketbook, an oath maybe to ruining the lives of veterans. Elon needs to, go back to making rockets.
I mean, you're a supporter of Ukraine and the weapons and the intelligence. What about that exchange and what Elon said?
Well, I think it might have been better left unsaid on both sides. I know Mark Kelly. We worked together in the Armed Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee. I think he's wrong. I don't think he's a traitor. I think Elon Musk is a great American as well. Elon Musk has been one of the great industrialists of our age. He works with our Department of Defense. He works with the intelligence community. He has built a company, SpaceX in particular, that is vital to our national security and our space program. So it's not rhetoric that I would use on either side.
I want to ask you about the DOGE efforts and specifically tonight, the Department of Education. It looks like 1,300 are going to be let go. What's your thought about that, the reaction to it, and how it's playing out?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say necessarily this is a DOGE effort. This is President Trump's campaign promise. He campaigned on ending the Department of Education. And I think if you look at what we've spent as a nation since the Department of Education was created in the 1970s and progress that our students have made, you see that the spending goes up pretty steadily and student achievement does not go up to match it. Most education is conducted at the state and the local level. I think what President Trump understandably wants to do is to reduce the amount of spending on bureaucracy here in Washington so we can provide more support at the state and local level where you actually have teachers in classrooms instructing students on needful skills as opposed to spending more and more money, as we have for decades now, on administrators and bureaucrats.
We've seen just the tip of the iceberg of the tariff battle. April 2nd is the reciprocal tariffs. We've seen what the market reaction has been. Are you worried at all about the long-term impacts of this in world affairs?
Well, I hope what the long-term impacts will be is that we get reciprocal trade agreements with Canada, with Mexico, with the EU, with other countries, because it is true that we have a lot of good partners that we are security allies with, that we are treaty allies with in many cases, yet they still put unjustifiably high tariffs on our products or non-tariff barriers. President Trump has made this a hallmark of both of his terms in office and all three of his campaigns, that we need reciprocal trade agreements with our friends. And you've seen some movement in the last 24 hours from the Ontario Premier, for instance, to reduce the limit or the tariff barriers on electricity provided to northern states. I hope that foreign leaders will listen to President Trump and take him seriously when he says we need reciprocal trade agreements.
Last thing before I let you go, Daily Mail article. Tucker Carlson has claimed that Republican Senator Tom Cotton has been working behind the scenes to block the release of the JFK assassination files. In a conversation with Chris Cuomo, Carlson claimed the Arkansas lawmaker prevented a key intelligence hire in the Trump cabinet in order to stop the full release of the classified documents. Your response?
That's false. I have
Completely false.
Completely
Nothing
false.
to it.
I have no problem releasing the JFK files. Tucker could have called or texted me. He has texted me multiple times in recent weeks and asked me, and I would have told him that. I've never spoken to President Trump or any of his associates or administration officials about the JFK files. I've never objected to someone taking office because of their position on the JFK files. I have to say I have complete faith in Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, John Ratcliffe, and Tulsi Gabbard to carry out President Trump's directive on the JFK files. I'm a little surprised that Tucker Carlson apparently doesn't have faith in those four people, all of whom I think he knows and personally respects, that they're going to carry out President Trump's directive.
But you're convinced, as Senate Intelligence Committee chair, that all of that is going to happen despite all the stuff online that and the Epstein files somehow are going to not get out?
Well, to be clear, I don't really know what the so-called JFK files might contain. I've read news reports that there's about 3,000 documents that have not been released yet. I think they're going through a declassification review process at the Department of Justice, at the DNI and the CIA. Again, I have total confidence in Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe and Pam Bondi that they'll release those as appropriate as the president directed. I have no problem with that.
We always appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Brett.